Arturia started life as a software company, producing soft synths that faithfully recreated classic analogue instruments. In part, thanks to the algorithms they developed, their software received much critical acclaim. Today they continue to develop and expand their software library, and in my humble opinion, it's some of the best emulations out there, not to mention great value for money. Back in 2012, Arturia announced a new product, a hardware synthesizer that would be fully analogue. Around this time, if you were in the market for a new subtractor synth, manufacturers were typically making hybrid and modelling synths using DSP, so part of or all of the signal path existed in the digital realm. Where's my analogue warmth? Oscillator instability, perhaps musicians were starting to cry out. So, along comes Arturia with the MiniBrute, the first new, fully analogue synth for quite some years. Its design goals, as well as featuring a fully analogue circuit, were to incorporate the sounds of a classic monosynth from the 70s and 80s era and bring it into the 21st century, along with an affordable price point. At the time, if you wanted a synth with genuine VCO, you were probably paying quite a lot for an old classic or to some boutique brand for new stuff. The MiniBrute wasn't actually Arturia's first hardware synth. That title belongs to the Origin, which is a sort of virtual modular synth workstation using analogue modelling and DSP. It also looks like you have to pay quite a bit of money for one these days. Maybe they're kind of rare, I don't know. Anyway, the MiniBrute is Arturia's first genuine analogue synth. It created quite a buzz in the industry at the time, as Arturia were largely known as a software company. And again, it's the first new synth with an analogue VCO to be seen for a number of years at that time. So today's video is actually going to be about buying a broken synth off of eBay and fixing it. And so I'll show you how that went. I have been on the internet again and bought another broken synthesizer. So here's the box. Let's open it up and see what's in it. Off the bat though, you can see this. Whoa. Hopefully that's not damaged anything. Alright. The suspense, what could it be? It is an Arturia MiniBrute. And yeah, we've got manual, that's nice. Some overlay cards, cool. Some silica gel, I like to eat that. Right, I'm just going to pause for a minute there. The person who sold this on eBay in the description said that there was no sound output and thought maybe the VCA was dead. Also that the original power supply had died some time ago and they'd replaced it. I kind of made a few assumptions at this point. One, that the seller had obviously owned this synth for a while and therefore was familiar with all of its controls and switches and that kind of thing. Secondly, that if they suspected the VCA was dead, then maybe they knew a thing or two about this sort of thing. Perhaps they'd sort of read up about a common issue with the synth, said that the power supply died. So yeah, I'd wonder if it'd been used with like the incorrect kind of power supply at some point, and maybe that had killed some sensitive electronics such as the digital board. So that's the bit that interprets the notes that you're playing on the keyboard, or notes that are being received by MIDI, and then fires out control voltages to the VCO and the other analog electronics. That would kind of be the worst case scenario, so I was hoping that wouldn't be the issue. Anyway, the actual problem is way more simple than all of that, and it's not even a fault. Got it plugged in and it's powered up, and there is indeed life. If I hold a key, notice that LED there goes solid. So that's kind of indicating that, you know, some logic side of this is working fine, as well as this tap tempo button. That's functioning as it should. Octave range, it's going up and down, nice. We've got these green lights on the envelope section. Not doing anything, not sure what that is. But anyway, promising. Maybe I'll check out the manual and see what those are about. LED indicator shows the amount of filter envelope sent to the filter. The LED's brightness depends both on the envelope signal amplitude and the velocity signal sent by the keyboard. Right, okay. Still nothing. Got the envelope amount here. really feel like those should be doing something. Alright, so it actually might be kind of sensible to plug some headphones in and have a listen. If I turn the headphones volume all the way up, I can hear a slight background hiss. Nothing on the filter there. If I turn the resonance up, I can actually hear some crackling. And I can kind of sweep that a little bit with the cutoff. But literally nothing. So there is some kind of audio coming out of this. Maybe we'll try sticking a USB in there. See if we can get any activity. And in MIDI view, MiniBrute MIDI interface turning up. So let's select that and press some keys, and we have nothing. Well, that was a really easy fix. I don't know if you can even really call it a fix. So yeah, around the back here we've got this gate source switch, and that was all the way over on audio, I think. So if we push it to keyboard, press the keyboard, and we can see our envelope lights are coming on and we're getting sound. All working nicely. As for the MIDI, two options for MiniBrute. MiniBrute MIDI interface and MiniBrute. If I select that, press a key, you can see that works. Oh, it's got aftertouch. Nice. So yeah, it works. Nothing to fix. Oh my god, is that an Arturia MiniBrute? And it has a single oscillator with 5 selectable waveforms: sub-oscillator, sawtooth, square, triangle, noise, and an audio in, and that's all mixable, this little mixer here. Above it, it's got various controls for shaping the different waveforms. Next to that, we have a Steiner Parker multi-mode filter, which has a selection of low pass, band pass, high pass, and notch. Below that, we have 2 envelope generators. Below that, we have an LFO, which has a variety of different waveforms, including a couple of random waveforms. Next to that, there is an arpeggiator with all the usual kind of controls: an octave range and a mode switch, and then resolution. It's got a tap tempo and this swing control, which is quite nice. Over here we have another separate LFO just for vibrato, as keyboard also has aftertouch, which can route to the cutoff or the vibrato. Then also glide for gliding between the notes, and that's about it. So yeah, the only other thing to mention here is this brute factor control, which is basically like a feedback loop, and that's to create some funky kind of distortion sounds. And that's it, really. Pretty straightforward. The MiniBrute was kind of an influential product which began a trend of sorts. On its release, there was nothing else quite like it on the market. A fully analogue monosynth which was affordable. This concept was almost unheard of and had not really been attempted with any degree of success at the time. For Arturia to make the MiniBrute affordable, they had to manufacture the first run in a fairly high volume, so components could be bought at a bulk saving cost. This was maybe a bit of a gamble for Arturia. Most synths on the market were of the digital polyphonic ilk and had patch memory. Fortunately, the MiniBrute was popular and spawned a new interest in the humble monosynth, with a hands-on approach to creating patches. By incorporating some new features and stability to its design, the MiniBrute is not just a poor man's Model D or SH101, it's an innovative instrument capable of some new sounds. Soon after its successful release, other manufacturers followed this trend. For example, Korg with the MS-20 Mini, the Volca series, right through to the Monologue and beyond. Okay, so how does it sound? Well, let's just have a listen to some of the waveforms. We've got a sawtooth. And associated with that, you've got this ultra saw control, which is sort of like a phase shifter. When you turn it up, it sounds kind of like you're stacking oscillators, detuning a bit, that sort of thing. Okay, so square wave. Adjust the pulse width. And and you can use the envelope, the filter envelope, to control the pulse width as well. That sort of thing, and also the LFO. Apply the LFO to the pulse width. And you've also got a triangle wave. Obviously triangle waves are kind of like sine waves, so there's not really much going on with harmonics. However, the triangle wave has this metallizer control, which is a wave folder, apparently. But anyway, sounds sort of like this. Kind of sounds metallic. And again, you can modulate that with the LFO. Or the filter envelope. Yep, and so as well as that, you've got noise. The multi-mode filter, let's have a quick listen to that. The filter can obviously be modulated by the filter envelope. Fairly self-explanatory, right? And when you turn up this brute factor control, which is like a feedback loop, the filter gets even crazier. Also quite like the bandpass mode on this. Sounds pretty good. How'd I miss out the sub oscillator? There we go, the sub oscillator, you got octave range and two different waveforms. Sine wave and square wave. Okay, so the arpeggiator, you've got the usual controls that you expect to find here. This octave range, switch, mode. There's this swing control and this tap tempo, which is quite a nice touch. The LFO, mentioned earlier, you can route that to the various wave shaping controls, oscillator pitch, the filter and the amplifier. And it's got some random waves. And I think it goes almost all the way up to a sort of audible frequency range. So you've also got this vibrato control, which you can either control with aftertouch, so you can route that to the modulation wheel as well. Aftertouch, you can also put that to the cutoff as well. So yeah, the aftertouch is quite sensitive. It's quite difficult to control that. So what else? We've got glide as well. That kind of thing. Arturia enlisted the help of Yves Usson, who designed much of the circuitry in the MiniBrute. I hope I'm saying his name right, I think I am. He later went on to collaborate on other Arturia hardware synths, but who is he, you might be asking? Yves is said to be humble, an incredible talent, and very passionate about synths and a synth guru. He actually works as a research scientist by day and considers designing electronic instruments to be his hobby. He shares his designs with the DIY community, which is where I believe he gained something of a reputation. His designs can be found at usynth.net. As a teenager back in the 70s, Yves began making his own radios and amplifiers and found that the next logical step was to build synthesizers. So I kind of think, the 70s was an era where electronics as a hobby and musical innovation, those kind of things really came together and sort of blossomed in a way. You see lots of people in that era doing innovative things with transistors and resistors and stuff like that. Other things to note, there is no presets on this, but it does come with some overlay cards. So yeah, you've got these overlay cards, and what's this? Dastardly. Slip that in there. And there's little markers for everything, where everything's meant to go. How quickly can this be done? There we go. Funk bass. Let's give that one a go. Hazarding a guess, this is going to be a bit of a sort of MiniMrute kind of sound. But let's see. Okay. Let's try another one. UK grime lead. Right. That's everybody. Oh no. The soloist. Yeah, that's kind of MiniMrute, isn't it? One more clavy lead. Can you imagine doing this at a gig? Just give me a second. Just got to program my synthesizer. Keyboard players, people like Rick Wakeman had millions of keyboards because they were all just set to whatever patch they needed for the different songs, because none of them had any presets. So yeah, I think in the hands of a more capable keyboard player. Preset overlays, as well as these preset overlays, Arturia gives you some blank ones still, so you can make a record of your own sounds. This second-hand one I've bought is the previous owner hasn't actually used any of these, so these are mint. Nice. Okay, one last thing. Let's try and just make something totally crazy and horrible sounding. Starting with this metalizer. Let's give it the brute factor. Lots Lots of resonance. Some sub oscillator maybe. Can we give that some envelope? Can it do a kick drum sound? It's sort of there, but it really needs that sort of pitch bend on it. So yeah, unfortunately in this you can't actually route either of the envelope generators to the oscillator pitch. Snare drum, sort of. Off the back of the success of the MiniBrute, Arturia came to making more hardware synths and of course more software emulations. We later saw the MiniBrute S, the MicroBrute, the MiniBrute 2 and the Matrix Brute. Maybe the passion from the beginning was there to make hardware, but the upfront cost for that is quite high and hence starting out making software. You know, if you're a small team it's really just time developing and then the major cost being marketing. But you know, get successful with the software and move on to hardware. Perhaps that was their business model. Not really sure, just a guess of sorts. In any case, I think the MiniBrute holds its own and has real significance in pointing the synth market in a different direction. It maybe doesn't have as many features as, say, the more modern Korg Monologue, but it's a different experience and a different sound. These things are, of course, subjective. However, nobody says I'm going to buy a Stratocaster because it has more features than a Les Paul, an additional pickup, a whammy bar, double cutout, a headstock that doesn't fall off when you drop it. Those guitars have a different sound that lend themselves to different scenarios. Likewise, the MiniBrute is unique in its own way, it has its own sound, and, you know, I reckon it's worth a play. Check it out. Thanks for watching. Yeah.